What's up, everybody? This is Don Ward with Third Creative, and I am back with a new template ready to roll out. Super excited about this one. It's called Versatility, and you could probably use your imagination as to why I named it that, but throughout the course of this video, my plan is to show you exactly why I named it Versatility. And there's multiple reasons, but let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to start off with explaining some options that I have for the team photos. Got this little visual here, something I used for a little promotional video that I made. But you notice it says 2 team options, full body or partial body, and I have examples. I really like full body. I like showing shadows or reflections. And that's something that I did over here that you can see, but not everybody is going to want to do that. You know, in every team that they shoot, they may have a lot of people, or they may be a little too pressed for time, or not have the time to create all the reflections or the shadows. And in that case, you can do a partial body and set it up over here with an option to do that by adding this additional bar or stripe here. So you can see the team only, and then the team and individual or memory mate style image over here. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I wanted to, you know, give you an option, make it a little more flexible, a little more versatile. But I'd like to actually show you some examples of some of the images that I've made with this. You may have noticed this particular image, or recall seeing it previously. I rolled this out, or shared it, I guess, a few months back in volleyball season. I made this originally for my daughter's high school volleyball team, and that's something that I do every year. We use this for their banners. We used it for their package photos, and also something we call merchant photos, displayed around town at a lot of local businesses. And they really loved it. And I've gotten a lot of messages and emails from my peers asking if this was ever going to be a template. And I've always had plans to make it a template, just busy, and finally got around to doing that. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the things that you can do with this thing. And before we start that, I want to explain one thing. This texture that you see back here, these volleyball seams, obviously had the idea, okay, how can we make this work for multiple sports? We can add seams or textures or images that relate to specific sports. I actually have created 10 different sport-specific background textures, and I also have 2 multi-purpose texture backgrounds that can be used for multiple things. So I'm going to go through and kind of show you some of the examples. Obviously, we have volleyball for this one. We also have basketball, and once I get done showing you these examples, I'm going to actually go through the whole process for those who want to stick around and watch, see how the whole thing works, how you change colors, go through folder by folder, layer by layer, kind of explain everything, so you know how to use it. We're going to go ahead and try to recreate this one. We have soccer, so you can see I went with color here, colored background, kind of a white bar here. It's very bright, very vivid, it pops. I really like that one. We also have a football option. We have a hockey option, which I went with this ice look. You can kind of see it has skate marks all over it. Thought that was pretty cool. Next one, we've got baseball or softball seams. Really could be used for either baseball or softball. In this case, it's softball image. Also have tennis. And let's see what else we have. Golf. I really like this one. Um, there's no colors in it whatsoever, but that's just another option. Looks really cool. Same thing with this wrestling. I've got wrestling mats back here, no color. You can do color. But again, with this school colors, it worked out really well. We have option for swim, which is this water texture you'll notice here. You can make that any color that you want. I went with the colors that were in this swimsuit. This is a texture that I was talking about. Originally it was a metal texture. It kind of looks like it could be metal or something else, but this is kind of a catch-all. You can use it, in this case I used it for boxing. I think it could be used for powerlifting, it could be used for martial arts, it could be used for lots of things if you want to go with this option. And then the last one is, I have two examples for it, but I used it for band, and it's kind of a bokeh effect. I thought that worked well with band, and it probably would work for a lot of things, like cheer. So I've got this example here, but it could be dance, could be choir, could be drill team, could be a lot of things. So as you can see, we've got all sorts of color arrangements, color options. You've got complete control of all of the colors, and just a lot of options, especially when you add in these sport textures. So let's go ahead and take a look. Real quick before we start the walkthrough, I want to go ahead and show you the team photo and kind of retouch on what I was talking about earlier about full body or partial body. So if you can use your imagination, this is set up the same for both the team only and what I call the team/individual or the memory mate style. So you'll notice the very first folder, I've got team full body labeled. Let's take a look at that. There's a few things I want to show you. There's 3 layers here. I've got one for the team. We can turn that off. I've got an above light source, so you can kind of see when I turn it on and off how that works. So this above light source creates this floor lighting effect, which is its own layer, which you have here. So if you look at it all together with the floor light, to me it looks a lot better than without. Adds that extra effect. Looks pretty cool. You can adjust the opacity if you want it super bright. If you just barely want it to show, you can drag the opacity down anywhere in between. But cool option that you have if you're doing full body. Let's see. We have, let's go ahead and turn off team full body. This folder here, bottom stripes, this is where we're going to go ahead and modify it for partial body. So you'll notice I've got 2 folders here. I've got bottom right stripe, bottom left stripe, pretty self-explanatory. If we turn on that bottom left stripe, you're set up. And I've got this folder down here, which needs to be below or behind these bottom stripes. So I've got team partial body. If you open it up, it's got 2 layers. We'll go ahead and turn them on. So I've got the team. I've got them arranged here. You can make them smaller and really fit in a lot of people if you need to. And then I've got a rear light source you can turn off. So it's there if you like the way that looks. I think it adds a little bit. You see it without the team. So those are the options for full and partial body. Just another way to make this template as flexible and versatile as possible. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We have the template. This is how it looks when you first open it up. So I'm going to go through folder by folder, layer by layer, explain everything, demonstrate everything. But before I start down here with background, we need to drop our player image in here. So player image is this one here. let's open it up. We've got Lindsay here. So should have had this ready to go in the first place, but that's okay. I'm going to go to my handy dandy Dropbox folder that Brian Evans, Game 7 Sports Photography. You guys probably know him. He shared some options, some images for me that I've been using, helping me out quite a bit. So let's drop him in there. There he is. And let's see, let's go ahead and turn Lindsay off. And I'm going to need to make this smaller to have room to work. And I hold down Shift, click and drag this corner, and just kind of size it up how I want it. We can always change it later, but I think right in there is going to be good. Yeah. Let's move him over. All right, so now we've got our player dropped in there. We're ready to get started. So very bottom, we've got background, and it's just 2 layers. You've got a change color. Could be used as a color overlay. In this case, I have it set up as just a solid color because this blend mode is on normal. If you turn that off, this is what the actual background looks like. So you can go with that if that works. If you need to change the color, you just turn this layer on, and if you leave it as normal, it's just going to be a solid color. So I could do solid blue, dark blue. You've got this whole range to work with. So play with it. Find what will fit your players' uniform colors or team colors. We're going to hit cancel on that. If you change it to overlay, then you'll get a slightly different effect, which may not be super noticeable. I can turn off this glow to get a better idea. So let's see. We'll go with that. And you see overlay versus normal, very solid. You get a little bit of a little more depth, I guess, if you go this route. So whichever works for you. In this case, I want an all white or very bright white background. So I am going to, if you notice, if I select the brightest white, or the purest white, it's still gray because it's on overlay. We're going to change it to normal because that's what I want, just bright white. And that is how the background folder is going to work for you. Let's see, next one we have large top stripe. Now, what that's referring to, and if you need to or want to, you can just turn it off to see exactly what it is. But it's referring to this entire area up here with the exception of the text layers. So let's open that up. There's a little bit going on in here. We'll start at the very top. This is the middle wide stripe. Turn it off. You can see exactly what that is. And this is a good place to talk about colors and how we change them. There's going to be basically 2 ways that you'll change colors. One way, which is how it's set up for this stripe, is in a gradient overlay. So you'll notice here it says gradient overlay. You just double click on it and it'll open up this layer style window, and make sure you're on or have this gradient overlay selected or highlighted. And this is the current gradient that's being used. If you double click on it, oops, we didn't want that. Double click. Goodness. Just single click on it. That works better. Okay. This is where you can pick the colors that you want to use. Now you can, let me back up, you can just turn that off and do a solid color like this right here. Looks kind of generic. I like the gradient overlay because it adds a little more dimension. So we'll click on that, and this is where we're going to select our colors for this. Now I don't know if you can tell, it looks like we've got a purple and a yellow here. It might be blue, I think it's purple. We're going to go with yellow though. So I already have some gradients in here from all the examples, the sample images that I've made. So that'll be really handy, but if you're starting from scratch, and for those of you who already know how all of this works, just bear with me. Try to cover everything just in case this is new to anybody. We'll go ahead and click on this first square pointer here, and then click on color, and you can choose your starting color with this slider. So we're going to go down into this yellowish orange range here, and let's pick, let's see, we'll try bright right there. Now let's go a little darker. Maybe right there. And you can always change it. Now in this case, I don't want anything too drastic, I don't think. You can go really dark to really light, or just very subtle. Let's try right there. So slightly darker. Maybe we'll go just a little bit darker. Just try that. Okay. I think I have reverse selected, and I don't think I want that. Yeah. So see what it looks like. So that's what it looks like. Now while we're on this, this is very important. When you create a gradient that you're going to use, you want to save it. That way you don't have to do it the hard way when you go to these other layers here when you want to make them match. So the way that I do that is just to hit new, and there it is. So when I go into another one, it'll be in my palette. You just select it. Makes things a lot easier, a lot faster. Let's see. So let's move on to the next one. This one also has a drop shadow, which you can double click on and modify if you want to. The next layer, we have a light flare. You can turn it off, turn it on. You'll notice it's right up here. You can move it around. You can play with the opacity. A lot of options there, but doesn't have any color in it. It's just white. Next one is the top wide stripe. Turn it off. It's referring to this right here. I think I want to make that match to this one. So I'm going to double click gradient overlay. Click on this. Scroll down. There's the one I used. Hit OK. A lot faster that way. This is a big one, this next one. We've got sport textures. This is a folder in which you're going to drop your texture in. If you notice, it only has volleyball in there. And I did that because putting all of those texture layers in here would make this file massive, way too big. So if you purchase this, you will get a folder that includes all 12 textures in PNG format. So I'm going to go ahead and go to that. Let's see. You can see my mess here. Let's see. Probably should have had this one ready. That's okay. All right. So we want this basketball texture. So I will click and drag and drop. And it's thinking. While it's doing that, we'll go ahead and turn off volleyball. Well, no, we gotta accept that. Turn off volleyball. Okay. Now let's size this up. Click on the corner, hold down Shift. Click on the corner again. And you can set this up how you want it. You might have to make it considerably bigger so that it covers the entire area. And then you can make the seams show how you want them to. Let's see. Maybe right there. Cool. So we've got that dropped in there. A few more steps to this part. The next step, you'll notice I've got change color. This is set to overlay. So you can pick a color that works with your color scheme. I'm going for purple. So we'll slide up here and just see what it looks like. So that's pretty saturated. I'm going to go with that right there, and I might change it after we do the next step, but this is another step. It's pretty important. I don't think that, well, some of you may want that real contrasty look. I personally don't. And the way that I fix that, take care of that, is to have this selected, and on a Mac, it's Command L to get a levels adjustment. And of course, you can always go into Image Adjustments and find your levels. So in this case, you can see the Command L. But it's going to add an adjustment layer to this. And in the adjustment layer, if you want to make it more contrast, you can use these up here. You can slide that left to right for the blacks, this right to left to increase the whites. That's not a look that I want. I want the opposite. I want to flatten it out a little bit. So I'm going to come down here to Output Levels, click on this left black and slide it to the right, and kind of tone down those blacks. And you just got to play with it. Same thing with the white. Play with it till it looks how you want it. I think the blacks are too flat. Maybe somewhere in there. The good thing is you can always come back when you're done and adjust it. Just like this color, I think I'm going to adjust it. It's a little bright. A little too saturated. Not by a lot. Let's try that right there. Alright, so that's how you will take care of your sport texture background, by dropping it in here. Go ahead and close that up. And the last one we have here is called border stripes. It's actually just one big layer that lays behind all of it. So turn it off, you can see you lose the border here and here. Turn it back on. Same thing applies as far as changing colors. It has a drop shadow that you can adjust if you want to, but we use this gradient overlay. So I'll double click on that, and in this case you can do anything. You can do, you know, a grayish white. You could keep it yellow. If the team had a third color, then you could add that in this case. And in most cases, what I do is make this outer border similar to the color that's in this texture background here. So I already have one that I used before. Rather than creating a new, I'm going to select it and hit OK. And that is pretty much it for this section right here. So moving along, the next folder we have is Glow Behind Subject. Self-explanatory, we'll turn it on. I have this masked out up here because I didn't want it affecting the text up here. You can control the opacity, so if you want it as bright as can be, we go 100%. If you just want it super subtle, you can drag it down and just fine tune it to your liking. I think I had it around 72, and we'll leave it there for now. I always go back at the end and see what I want to change or tweak. Now, if you open this up, I guess that's wrong one. Let's try again. If you open it up, you've got a folder within the folder called Glow Layers, and you have a color changing adjustment that's clipped to it. So if you want to put a tint or a slight hue to this glow to match your colors or to go with your theme, you just turn this on and play around with it, get it how you like it. If you leave this at white, it will be just the same as if you have it off, because everything in this folder is white. So I went ahead and left all of these layers because for those who want to go in and change it up, you'll have that option. You can go in and turn off any of them you want to. You can resize. You can maybe lower the opacity on the ones that you want to. You have a lot of, well, you have full control there. So it's an option. Probably most of you will just leave it alone, and if you want to play with it, you can adjust the opacity just in the folder itself. The next one we have is middle top text layer. So obviously we're talking about all the text layers up here, and if we open it up, I kind of have it in order. Try to make it go in order from top to bottom. So we'll start off with year. Again, we have a well, in this case, not a drop shadow, we have an inner shadow. And then we have a gradient overlay. So we're going to go ahead and change the color. And in this case, I think I want to use this yellow. And we can try purple. I think I like yellow. Let's go with that. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in real quick and just kind of show you this inner shadow, so you can see the effect that it leaves on there. If I turn it off, it looks like that. I like it a lot better with it on. You can of course fine tune it. If you double click on it, you can control the size and the depth or the distance. So you can always adjust that if you want to. And let's go back. The next one we have is the player name. I have the gradient overlay turned off for the volleyball example, so it's just solid black right now. For this one, we are going to use the gradient to change the color, so I'm going to turn that on. Looks like it's default set to red, which we don't want. It's got a yellow background, so let's go with purple. I think that'll work good. And see the next layers. This is something that I've been doing just for convenience. I have senior, junior, sophomore, freshman. So if you're shooting a high school team, they're already in there and you're good to go. Just turn on the one that you need, modify it how you want it. But if you're shooting a team that's not for high school, you can pick one of these or duplicate one of these and change it to anything that you want. In this case, I'm going to make him a senior, and we are going to use a gradient overlay. And I have one in here that's super subtle, but it's gray to white. Let's see. Yeah. And I think I want to turn the drop shadow on in that one. And if you look, you can see it just adds a little bit of dimension. Just a little extra. I like the way that looks. It works either way. So moving along, we have our last two layers in here in this folder. And so this is going to control the text that you see in this strip right here. I've got LRV in there for Lady Raider Volleyball. Obviously we need to change that, so I will double click on this T here. And I'm going to type in Raiders, and I'm going to do all caps. And in between each word, I like to hit the space bar twice. It looks better than just once. So let's get that in there. And I can stop there because we're off the screen. I'm going to do the same thing down here. I've got them offset a little bit so they're not exactly the same. And that'll work. Cool. So we've got it changed to Raiders. We need to change the color. Same process. And you'll notice on this one there's a little bit of extra. I've got the option for drop shadow rather than inner shadow. I personally really like the inner shadow, but if it kind of makes it look like it's cut out. from this bar, but if you would rather have it look like separate where it's on top, you have that option, and you can fine-tune your drop shadow just by double clicking on that. I'm going to stick with the inner shadow. Another option you have is to add a stroke. You can see here, turn it on if you want it to pop a little bit more. You can double click in there and control the stroke as well. You can make it a gradient, you can make it solid color, whatever looks good for you. So we're going to leave stroke off, and I need to change this here. So we got to decide what we want. I think purple is the way we want to go. Yes. We'll do the same down here. Got purple. There we go. Starting to come together. One thing I did not do. You guys probably noticed it. It's probably driving you crazy. Player name. Let's change his name. What did I call this guy? Let's see. It was Ed Hurst. That's right. So let's change that. All right. So you'll notice it's too small. That's because I had a bigger name in there. So the way I adjust that is I have character in my control panel here, and I like to use this just real subtle, slow drag to the right to make it bigger until I get it about how big I want. I don't want it too big because I want some room. I don't want it too close to the edge. In case they frame it, you always lose a little bit. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to use my arrow up, down, left, right to kind of move it around and get it where I want it. Maybe right in there. Okay, so now we're done with that. Let's see, two more to go. Let's see, we've got next bottom right stripe, pretty self-explanatory. I'm talking about this right here. We'll open it up. Got three light flares in here. They're all white, no color. You can change their size, their opacity, move them around if you like. But we only have two other layers that you control, which is this white stripe here and this color background stripe here. So the first one is the foreground, or this white one. Same process. We're going to use a gradient for color. We're going to stick with our theme, yellow on top. And on the next one, the background, we'll stick with our theme, and we will do purple. Coming together. Let's see, that's it. So we'll close that up. Very last one. We have, let's go ahead and get this to fit on the screen again. There we go. So we have the text layers for the bottom right. I had to put them separate because obviously these need to be on top of your subject and the others need to be behind. So we'll start here. What I like to do personally is have this first word a contrasting color than the other two words. Now you might add words, you might have several things in there. You can do whatever works for you. But in this case, we need to change this. Can't remember what I put on the example. I think it was Jackson. Just totally made up team here. I'm originally from Michigan, and I was thinking cities and towns close to where I live, and Jackson came to mind. So I went with Jackson. You can see it's a separate layer, so it's kind of covering that up. We can fix that though. And in fact, this is a little easy because the previous team and his team are both Raiders. So let's move it. And commit it. Let's go back up to Jackson. We need to have a contrasting color. Let's see. I think I went with white the first time. Yeah. And we have an inner shadow there. Moving on to Raiders. Go with purple. And same thing with volleyball. Purple. It's not volleyball, is it? It's basketball. So we'll change that up. And that's it. So at the end, I always kind of take a look at it and see, is there anything that I would want to change? And I think maybe I might resize him slightly. Make him just a little bit bigger. So hold down Shift and drag. Let's move him right there. Commit. Let's bring him down so he doesn't cover up his name. Just a little more. Yeah, I like that. Anything else? Maybe take a look at this glow. All the way. I think I like a lot of glow. And I'm not sure I covered it or not. I don't think I did. On this player image folder, I've got inner glow and outer glow. And a lot of you probably already know how they work. Just like gradient overlays, you double click on them and you can control like the opacity, the size. You can fine tune it. Same thing with the outer glow. You can turn them off. So if you don't want that glow, which in this case I think it works. In some cases it may not. One example or an option I'll go ahead and talk about. Turn off the glow back there. Probably not the best for him, just the way he's standing, but you have an option if you want to create a drop shadow on your player. So if you want to make it look like he's standing up against, so maybe if it's like a thigh or waist up photo, if you double click on your player image and go to drop shadow, let's move this where we can see it, and you can play with it. Distance probably needs to be pretty far. And just to see it, let's turn the opacity up. You can control the angle. So we have light coming from his right, our left. So we'll point that in that direction. Looks like it's slightly above. Obviously that doesn't look good yet. We need to change the size. Make it real soft. And then bring that opacity way down. So there you have yet another option if you don't like the glow that I have set up behind the player, which in some of my examples I did it this way. Tennis is one, soccer is one. So just another option. We'll go ahead and cancel and turn that back on, turn that back on, and turn that back on. So there you have it. I know that was kind of long, but for those of you who are going to be using this template, hopefully this will help you if you get hung up on anything, especially like changing colors or how things work. Really excited about this one. If you guys have any additional questions, you can always shoot me an email, don@thirdcreative.net. But that's it. That's all I got. So until next time, thanks again for watching.